So, Nintendo has released their Switch 2 Direct, and we got ourselves some massive information about the Switch 2 and what it brings to the table. Now, let me preface by saying this to start off with, right? I have never owned a Switch. I've never played a Switch game. Well, I wouldn't say that. I never owned a Switch, so I have not played a lot of the games that you would expect. I have played a couple of times with friends, like visiting them playing Smash Brothers. I played, Mario Kart, the typical type of games that you would expect from playing on the Switch. But for the most part, I never owned the Switch, so I never played a lot of the games that come with it. So when the Switch 2 was announced, my expectation was that I was going to be greeted with an opportunity, basically, a great opportunity for me to obtain a Switch that may or may not be from the original Switch, right? Just not the original Switch, but maybe get the newer Switch that will obviously be backwards compatible, and I'll be able to play the new games and stuff like that. Plus, also be able to play some of the older games as well. Now, as to why I have not played a Switch in the past couple of years, it's mostly a preferential thing. I do like to play on the PlayStation, even if they're not like super exclusives. Me personally, I practically don't care much about exclusives. And although there is that element of FOMO, where I'm just missing out on a bunch of this content and stuff like that. Like, I wish I wasn't around the time where I could care a lot about Smash reveals. I do care about the Smash reveals a lot, but I feel less, how do I say, qualified to speak on what this means a lot to me or the community, because I've never played Smash or anything like that, or never owned it. So I can't really speak on that regard. But now, I feel like I will want to get into this journey of the Switch 2, and I want to start going into the new journey, the new generation of the Switch 2. Now, we had the Direct. It was awesome. The Direct was amazing. The games look outstanding. Mario Kart Worlds, the new Donkey Kong game. Some of the new games are coming up from FromSoft, from Silksong, Deltarune. You had all these games that are popping up, all the games that are going to be upgraded and stuff like that. And it looks really great. And it looks all amazing. All the games look outstanding. There's nothing to say about the games. But there is something to be said about the company, and specifically the prices. Now, let's address this, right? I've been wanting to own a Switch for a long time. And, I haven't thought about buying a Switch. I thought maybe I'm already at the point where I feel like it's a bit too late for me to own a Switch at this point, since the Switch 2 is coming out. And I thought to myself, okay, well, look, getting a Switch 2 is going to be a great opportunity for me to finally get a Switch that is backwards compatible and stuff like that, right? And not only that, I get to play the new games. And so they released the price for the Switch 1, right? The Switch. So it's $450 US dollars, which, in my personal opinion, is pretty decent value. It's basically with the same, now that the Switch 2 has bigger processing power, it's much more powerful than the Switch 1, which I think that was one of the bigger reasons why I didn't want to buy something like that, because I figured a game like that is a bit a bit weak. And if I want to play some of these games in a bigger upscale, kind of like stronger build, I would wait for the Switch 2 to come out, which obviously came out in 2025, but the Switch came out like a long time ago. But even then, I was too hyper focused on playing the PlayStation anyways, and that's where a lot of my investment came into it. So that's besides the point. Whatever the case may be, though, I am now in the mood to get myself a Switch. And $450 for the Switch 2, it's a fairly decent deal. It's not that bad, right? The biggest problem right now for a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of you have been hearing about this, and as the news continue on as the day progressed, it just got worse and worse. So it's this conversation now divulges into the games themselves. Now, first off, I got the first dose of what potentially could be a danger to the pricing of these games, or at the very least, how Nintendo intends to profit out of these, out of the Switch 2, out of everything, right? And it all starts with that little section that they started off with in not necessarily in the Mario Worlds trailer, but during the Switch 2 presentation when they were discussing the features. And one of the features was that they were going to include a basically like a little mini game, basically an interactive tutorial, an interactive user manual, as you will, basically showcasing what the Switch can do, what are some of the functions within the Switch, all within an area of the game. And like, it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. The one thing that upset me is that it said it's paid. It's a paid user manual. That is jarring. That's actually kind of stupid. Honestly, that's very jarring. I gotta tell you that much, right? Because keep in mind, imagine you buy a game. Say like in the back in the day, right? Say you buy a game. Let's say, for example, you buy a Need for Speed game. Let's say you buy Kingdom Hearts. Let's say you buy some game, right? And it comes with the box case, and inside you have the disc and you have the user manual, right? Now, what if let's pretend like that box case does not have the user manual, and now you're thinking to yourself like, okay, I have the game, I have the box. How do I play this game? Like, well, how do it? I know they're gonna give me instructions, they're gonna give me tutorials, right? But what if I want to find out some secrets and stuff like that, or maybe some like hidden features within the game? Maybe learn the mapping of the controls, the user manual, as you will. What if they charge you, I don't know, $5 extra or $10 extra for that user manual? That's basically what it feels like, basically, for that Nintendo Switch, right? For that pretty much that little game. We don't know how much it's priced. For all we know, it could probably be priced $2 or $5 or, God forbid, $10 if they're really greedy. I don't see it going any further than $5 if they even try to. Even then, I don't see anybody buying that. There's no way that anybody would ever buy a user manual to learn what the Switch 2 does. That's what the presentation was for, all right? We don't need a whole interactive thing to learn about it. We'll just learn it as we go along playing the actual games, which now that we look into the games that are going to be releasing for the Switch 2, even that seems a bit like a bit of a turnoff now, because let's talk about the upgrades, the upgrade packs, as you will. So the Nintendo introduced the idea of upgrade packs, basically. So you have 4 or maybe a couple more games that are not only just compatible for the Switch 2, but they have upgradable. They have an upgradable game to it. So essentially, say like Super Mario, like Super Mario Party Jamboree, for example, right? Mario Party Jamboree. That's gonna come with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition that includes a new game mode, so extra content for that edition. It's basically almost like an ultimate edition of the game, so to speak. Now, if you own the game beforehand, if you say you own Super Mario Party Jamboree before the Switch 2, you can still use that game into that thing. But if you want the extra content, you're still gonna have to pay for it, which is just like, okay, well that's already disappointing to begin with. I know it's been a thing for a while already. I know there's been some cases where like, you can upgrade to like certain games and stuff like that. I know Final Fantasy has done it at some point. I know The Last of Us did it at some point when they were upgrading for the PS3 to PS4 and PS4 to PS5 and such as. But still, it's something that I feel like it's unnecessary anyways, but it's whatever, right? Now we're getting to some of the bigger problems with this, and that's the actual Nintendo Switch 2 games themselves. So let's address this real quick. So right now, as it currently stands, Mario Kart World is scheduled to be priced at around $80 for the digital version and $90 for the physical version. Now, that already is insane. $80 for a digital version and $90 for a physical version is practically crazy, right? Because keep in mind, these prices are practically fixed. They're going to stay like that most likely forever, for as long as Nintendo exists. Because I'll tell you what, out of the entire history of Nintendo, I have not once seen their prices of their games ever drop for a deal, for a discount. Hell, I don't even know if they probably do that for Black Friday, but you would never know because you probably don't expect that from them. So Nintendo has essentially released games, for their consoles, and never make it a discount. You'll never see a deal with any Nintendo first party game or anything like that. So if you wanted to get Smash Brothers, well, guess what? It's $60. You want to get the new, the old like Mario games and stuff like that, Mario Odyssey, still $60 to this day, man. I'll tell you this. And no, I don't see in any scenario where Nintendo will ever drop the prices for any reason whatsoever, unless there actually being a change in management. But even then, that's a bit of a stretch. So that's problem number one. Number two, and this is the big one. So the new physical copies for the Switch too, now there's some that actually have all the data within the same cartridge, like the little smart cartridge that you install into the Switch has all the game data in it, right? So some of them may require like internet connection to install it, or maybe at some point they do have like the capacity to transfer all the files within that area, right? To transfer all the files into the Switch. Now, these ones, and I know there's some as well in the original Switch that do this, but Switch 2 is looking to make a point that this is going to be exactly how they're going to run things. The physical copies come with the same cartridge, but instead of having the game data there, it's basically giving you the access to download the data within the Switch, but the data is not on the card itself. So the card itself is meaningless. Well, I wouldn't say completely meaningless. It's about like, I'd say 95% meaningless. And the reason I say that is because the 5% is the actual key, the actual code, or basically, think of it as like, how do I say? Think of it as like a card, like a gift card almost. If say you had like a card with an access code to a game, right? They give you the 12-digit code, and you put that code, and there's your digital download. That's basically what that card is. It's just a key code. It's just a 12-digit code within a card, basically. You put that into the game, it gives you access to the digital version of the game. It's not a physical copy, basically. So doing that for $90 is practically criminal, man. It's insane. And I'm actually looking at that, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, I might not even buy the Switch at this point, man. It doesn't seem worth it at this point. And keep in mind, I've been talking to my brother, and I've been talking to, my little brother and stuff like that, how we were going to save up money to be able to buy this game, and maybe at some point I'll be able to use that for maybe some content and stuff like that in the future for this channel as well. It would have been one thing it would be a fun time, right? But now looking at how this is run and how fairly expensive this is going to turn out to be, I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think buying a Switch for this kind of stuff, especially for a console that completely overprices their games, they're never going to go on special. And right now, so far, I know it's a lot of exclusives, but at this point, it just doesn't seem worth it because they're so overpriced. And this is exactly the problem. I wouldn't have a problem with the Switch 2 or the games themselves if the games and the Switch itself was reasonably priced. They were actually decently priced, which again, for the Switch itself, for the actual console, I think it's fairly priced. It's fine. It's not too big. I get that in some other areas it might be expensive, but for us here in the US, at least for me as the consumer, it's not too bad. The games are the biggest issue in here because it's one thing, right, to have the $450 console and keep it to yourself. That's yours now. That's completely yours. The games, though, that you own are not yours. And that's exactly the problem. So with the physical copy that you have for the Switch 2, that access code doesn't have the game data. You don't have the game, essentially, in that cartridge. You don't have the game. You just have the key to access the game within the basically the Nintendo Switch servers, basically. And the reason I say it's not technically yours is because, you know what? I kind of have a little theory right now, right? A little theory running into my head. Nintendo will likely be going on forever. Who knows? Maybe they'll last for a very long time. But I do see a time where Nintendo will actually shut down the Switch servers within the next 10 years. And by then, people who have digital copies of said games and stuff like that that were only accessible through downloading through the internet, And if you bought the game, say like on those little cartridges on the Switch 2, guess what? They're gone forever. And that's a big problem for game conservation. I highly recommend you watch videos on Moist Critical and Mutahar, all these other YouTubers that are talking about it so far. They're big advocates for, game preservation, and so am I. But I will say that currently the way it is, buying a Switch 2 right now at this current moment, especially with the prices of the games, it's not worth it. It's honestly not worth your buck. So instead, I'm actually opting to buy a Steam Deck, and I think that might be the better option, considering that not only is it it's still like around that same price, but I think with more accessibility for a lot of games and stuff like that, and probably more better, like around the same running time and stuff like that, and obviously the game library is more cheaper, because obviously there are some games that actually do go on special. There are some games that cost around 60 to 70 bucks around there, and some that it may even cost like sometimes at like 15 to 20 bucks at some points, so you have more accessibility with games. You have more games to play with. You have a lot more options, whereas the Nintendo Switch 2 seems like the only way you could ever really get into the Switch at this point, Switch 2, is if you already have the pre-existing games like the Switch, like some of the Switch games you already had previously. But if you're heavily invested into some of the newer games and stuff like that, it's honestly going to be very expensive. It's going to be very, very expensive, and it's probably not even going to be worth it, to be honest with you. I'm heavily considering not buying the Switch after what I'm hearing right now, because it's honestly very sad. It is very sad. I know there's plenty of people who probably missed out on buying, the Switches. I try to see if I could find a Switch that I can buy. And during COVID especially, I wasn't able to get any because most people were already buying it. I was actually fortunate enough to get the PS5 during the COVID and stuff like that. So I was very happy to be able to get that game or get the console within that time. I was actually very fortunate. But for the Switch, I wasn't very fortunate. So unfortunately, I had to miss out until they started restocking. But by that point, it was already way too late. The FOMO was already there. It was already far past and gone. So at this point, I'm just like, okay, maybe at some point they'll release the Switch 2. Maybe then I'll be invested into getting some newer upgraded equipment, some newer upgraded, hardware, and maybe it'll be worth my while. But right now, as it is, it's not worth my while. Honestly, I don't even see myself getting the Switch this year, and probably ever, because they're likely never going to drop the prices of these consoles, especially since, or more specifically, the games. I don't see that ever happening, and that's because Nintendo is such a company that it's very tone deaf, very out of touch. I'm sure a lot of fans will tell you the same thing, but as far as I'm concerned, right now, I think the current status of me getting the Switch 2 is big no right now. Unless they switch back and be like, okay, we'll drop the game prices to like $60, and we'll try to see if we can try to make our best to do like actual physical copies that you can keep and preserve for your personal keepsakes, then maybe. But I don't see Nintendo ever doing that. They rarely ever back down from stuff like that because they're greedy little mongrels. So can't say that what I will say is that the Switch hyped me up only for the company to let me down. And that's pretty much been the consensus as of this reveal. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you guys think about the status of the Switch 2. If you are buying one, let me know. And yeah, I guess it's going to be another, if nothing changes and it looks like the Switch 2 might not be worth it for me to buy probably ever, then I guess it's going to be another, 5-6 years of FOMO. What can you do, man? Sometimes you have better uses for your money, man. That's all I'm saying. But with that being said, if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about the whole situation. And yeah, with that being said, I'll catch you on the next video. See ya.